Welcome back, everybody. Today, I have a very special guest, Jessica Green. If you guys remember, or if you saw, we did a video on her channel, about a month ago? It's probably still one of my favorite interviews that we've done. So we had to come on here and do it again. And because, I love Jessica's perspective, and this time it's for our channel. So welcome.
Thank you. I'm so glad that you enjoyed our interview. I have a lot of fun with you on too.
Thanks. So, any major topics that you want to talk and discuss right now? Like anything that's going on in the world?
There's so much going on right now. I think the big story, of course, is the federal judge who tragically, her son has died from wounds sustained from an assassin who showed up at her door.
Yeah.
The motive is apparently unclear. And I think a lot of people have a theory as to what that might be, of course. It's hard not to connect it to the Epstein thing, seeing as that she was assigned to the case 5 days ago.
Oh, okay.
So I was watching the news on, I think it's Fox, and they barely mentioned the Epstein thing at all and alluded to the fact that he was a men's rights activist and that he had had previous beef with the judge because she had ruled against him in a case about, I think it was a military service, women's military service.
Okay.
And, so there is like previous connection between them that has nothing to do with the Epstein case, but it's awfully freaking weird that, she was assigned to this case. I was listening to Tim Pool, who mentioned that the specific reason that she was assigned the case is to delve into the financial aspects of it. Okay. And that the type of case that it was had to do with if people who were in the government were being investigated. So
okay. Yeah, I didn't even know about all that. I didn't know that there was that connection. I've seen a lot of it. I heard a lot about it. I've seen some of the memes, like even, some of the memes saying even the Clintons are suiciding their own assassins now.
Kind of it's awfully odd that that loose end just got tied up so neatly.
Yeah. And it's going to be interesting to see how even the Maxwell stuff goes forward with it, because I think it's going to bust out the whole thing, because I saw something the other day that was talking about just the elites. So it's not even party based. It's not anything like that. It's the elites in general. They have this stranglehold. Doesn't matter what party they're in, what their politics are. They knew about this island, and nobody did anything about it. Everybody became friends with him knowing about the island. So it's like, what is it about the elites that become like pedophiles or something like that,
My husband had an interesting theory about that. He said that when you have all the money and all the access in the world, things that might thrill or be enjoyable to just the regular person, that's nothing to you. So it's like the ratcheting up effect. Like, what else can I get away with? How far can I push this? And there's almost nothing to stop you from, indulging in the darkest tendencies of human nature. You just have no one who can tell you no. And everyone in the world will supply it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and that's what's crazy is because it's not like it's... You ever watch the show Prison Break?
No.
Oh, you gotta go watch it. So it's an older show. Early 2000s, right? But in the later seasons, basically his brother was set up for murder of like his father or something like that. It was basically a setup by the president of the United States, and it was like everybody was in on it. Like they were trying, and when they went to the media with the story, the media basically covered it up and basically told the people where they were at so that they could basically go and kill them and stuff like that. So it's kind of the same type of turn, because the media is complicit. Not even just complicit, they're actively engaged in covering up what's going on. Like you said, Fox, like there's nothing on this attempted assassination of the judge, about the Epstein case. Like, where is the Epstein file? And this is something that conservatives, liberals, and everybody believes that Epstein didn't kill himself. So this is something that we can all agree on. Why isn't the media covering it?
Well, interestingly, when it came out that that ABC News reporter had the Epstein story, and she was told to quash it, and that video went viral everywhere. Everyone saw her. And one thing I noticed about her was she was crossing her arms, getting all haughty about it. She was basically she wasn't upset that these people were, trafficking in women and girls. She was upset that she didn't get the scoop, that she wasn't the one who was allowed to get the scoop. So it's like, between the media, the politics, and the Hollywood celebrities, I think this is a big club that they're all in. And in order to remain in the club, you got to look this other way on certain things. Yeah. And I think the lid's about to get blown off, unless, of course, the guard falls asleep again, unless, of course, the camera doesn't work again. Like, they have no respect for us. They're not, they're not even trying. And then the FedEx assassin kills himself. I made a joke. Before I even heard that this guy killed himself, I made a joke on Twitter. I said the FedEx assassin did not kill himself, because I thought that was a funny tweet.
I saw your tweet.
An hour later, the story came out.
I saw your tweet, and I was like, wait, I thought it had already happened, so I didn't know that you had wrote that tweet before it happened.
I wrote it before I knew about it.
Okay.
Like, I thought, you think it's a clever tweet, you put it out.
Oh, yeah.
And then an hour later, I saw the headline, and I was like, well, there you go. I mean, it's not even, you could write this stuff if you've seen bad TV.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It just pisses me off, man.
No, you're absolutely right. It does. It writes itself. And like you said, they have no respect for the general public, and they think that they can say, oh, it's conspiracy theory. Well, no, everybody knows that conspiracy theory is exactly what this is. This is a conspiracy.
Do I theorize that they conspire? Yes.
Exactly.
Yes, I do.
Yes, I know.
I do it all the time.
Yeah, and all you have to do is look at, again, like, who all was in the Epstein documentary.
Yep.
Like, the three people we already know, Trump, Clinton, and Prince William, or was it Prince William that was on there? I think that's who it was.
I haven't watched the Netflix documentary yet, but okay. I watched it and then explained it to me on the phone in detail.
Yeah.
I don't have to watch it now. But yeah, in his mind, it actually convinced him that this wasn't a mass government conspiracy, and that this was just a guy like on his own who was acting in this way. But like, there's far too many people with far too much money who are going to these places.
Oh, well, that's what I'm saying. They were all going there. Trump posted them at Mar-a-Lago, and then even like this week, it was, like the Chrissy Teigen deleting 20,000 tweets.
Let's get into Chrissy Teigen, because that is messed up.
Yes.
She's right. I want to put myself in jail because I like watching these young people, these young girls.
I haven't seen any of the tweets, no, because she deleted all of them. I saw that because she was talking about toddlers and Tierra, right? Yeah.
Oh, Chrissy Teigen, gross.
Well, Christy Mayer, she like got her to like Chrissy Teigen to close her account for doing it, and apparently then the rumor started that she's on the fly list to the island. So, well,
it wouldn't surprise me if there are like a vast majority of these people who are, because it comes out that one of them's involved in it like that. It's got to be like, how many people knew? What did you know, and when did you know it? And even if you yourself weren't doing something, if you knew about it and you looked the other way, you're guilty.
You're right. Once some of this stuff, hopefully we can get Maxwell to give some of this information up, and apparently she's talking. So, and that's why they're kind of keeping a close lid on it, which don't know what that actually means. But are they covering the information, or are they actually bringing it out? But like you remember the whole thing with Harvey Weinstein and everything else. Once it came out, it came out, and now it's happening everywhere. You know. I think even electronic DJs in like major so Bass Nectar, I believe, was accused of now rape at a festival, and he's like the largest. He's probably the largest bass DJ in the world.
I know about him, and I'm not in that world at all. Like I don't know anything about that, and I know about Bass Nectar.
Yeah, so he's been canceled by the community. Yeah, and then there was another DJ just this past week that came out the same thing. So it's hitting everywhere, and it is. It's just these people that get these big names that are just doing this type of stuff, and they think they can get away with it.
And because they have for so long. So I have kind of a theory on that, which is that there is a younger generation of people that wants to break into the next level, and they're willing to sacrifice that older generation of famous people so that they can get in there.
Yeah.
There's something like that going on. People this big, they don't go down without help. Like someone else high up is helping this go down, because it's not like even if you had this information, ABC had this information.
Yeah.
They didn't do anything.
There's a whole lot more people that know, because I mean, I don't even know if you've seen or paid any attention to like Blair White's latest videos on like the Jeffree Star and Shane Dawson stuff.
Yeah, so she's put out a couple of videos about it in the last couple of days or weeks, but I haven't.
Well, she did the Jeffree Star video, and then she had two basically following up on the Shane Dawson when it started coming out as well.
Yeah, she's been taking up this mantle for a while. I think because she has like all of these younger fans that they feel a lot of responsibility toward them to like protect
absolutely them. Yeah, because because she went, I mean, a lot of like that whole she had an issue a few weeks ago where people were, you know, faking like DMs with her, like her DMs on that. Yeah, and they were completely false, and you could tell like finally somebody actually got on there and was like, this is how you can tell it's fake, it's just a screen share and all this stuff. And it was because of how she went after Peaches. Like her fans came crazy after her and tried to get that stuff out there. But then like the Davey Vanity stuff, because he was canceled a long time ago, and now people like the new generation forgets what happened with him. I didn't even know who he was. So, and that kind of leads into the Jeffree Star stuff. And I guess he confided in Blair like a month ago that he had all these like text messages, and he had all this dirt on like Shane Dawson. He said he has dirt on everybody. So
bring it out.
Yeah. I mean, well, that's what he holds the dirt, and he told her he holds the dirt so that he can manipulate people, because he was blackmailing Shane for so long. But now I think both of their Morphe cosmetic lines have been canceled. Like Morphe got rid of them.
My friend Jeffree Star palettes are not cheap.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
He threw that shit in the trash, and I was like, wow. Because I mean, like you already paid for it, right? I mean, she's, you know, I can completely understand that sentiment though.
Yeah.
Like, I don't, you know, like I abhor cancel culture, but this is the one thing where I'm like, yeah.
Well, I don't. It's not. Well, and that's even like I made a comment on the same thing. Like I said, but what we need to know, we need Morphe to come out and tell us, you know, give us a statement whether they're going to keep them or what. I think it is thundering out.
Oh, you hear it now? Yeah, it's coming. Yeah. It's a big one. It's a big mamma jamma.
Yeah. So, but because I was the same way. I mean, but that's the way that the free market really works. Is when something like that comes out, that is still a spokesperson for them. That's not cancel culture, in my opinion. That's the free market at work, right? That's capitalism. cancel culture is like these people that film somebody and then like find their employer. So they film somebody that has nothing to do with their job, and then they find that employer, and then they go, you know, did you see your employee did this? You should fire him, and then they get like all the heat there. So that's like doxing an employer, and then it's a bunch of people going in. So that's not. I mean, for them to for stuff like that to come out, that's not canceling. That's just getting fired of a spokesperson.
I can imagine like you got the palette and you're putting it on, and you're probably like thinking about it while you're putting it on, and it's like, oh, get this off of me. Like I get that, you know. I don't have the kind of money to have Jeffree Star palettes, so I didn't have to throw makeup. But
I've never had any of his stuff too, but I have Morphe brushes. Like all my brushes are Morphe brushes. Like the whole set I got for Christmas. I use Urban Decay makeup, so most of my eyeshadows are Urban Decay. So.
I just you know, so like when that whole Goya Foods thing hit and people were throwing like cans of edible food into the trash, I was like, that is the most privileged shit I've ever heard.
Oh my god. Like that's like that's going and buying a pair of Nikes and then burning them because of Colin Kaepernick, like stuff like that too.
But at the same time, like I imagine, like, because I know my friend, she's not part of this whole culture war thing. She's a vet tech. She concentrates on dogs, and that's her whole, and her awesome looking eye makeup.
Yeah.
And I can just imagine her sitting there putting it on and like it eating at her and having to like throw this in disgust. And I'm like, I'm sorry that you have to go through that because of these. Like, that sucks.
Yeah, it's not something because you, I mean, and if you know that she has this palette, then she's probably talks about how she loves the palette and how good it is, and then she's told people to use it. Yeah. Every time she uses it now, people are like, well, I didn't know this, and now she's thinking about all the people that she let down because she told them about this palette of this person that made so much money off of it just to hurt people.
Yeah. And I mean, of course, nobody who bought any of those products is in any way responsible for what a spokesperson does.
Oh, no.
Throw away your very, very expensive Jeffree Star makeup. That doesn't make you like a bad person. Like,
no, absolutely.
Expensive, and people, you know, don't have to do that. Is all I'm
absolutely. Saying. Yeah, you don't.
Between throwing out makeup and throwing out like perfectly good food, though, in my opinion, like.
Well, that's the thing is, why would you throw out food when you can just take it to a food bank?
Sure, or you like give it away, or like give it to your neighbor. Just like it can be. I mean, used, you know?
It can go into my prepper storage.
And that too is ridiculous. Like, not to shift the topic, but it's like someone compliments Trump, so you can't.
Oh my god.
Like,
yeah.
Yourself.
No, that's the way that's the way culture is right now, and it's awful because, like, come on now, like, you're gonna end up canceling everybody that you have, ever, and
maybe once we're all canceled, then nobody's canceled anymore, and it's just
I think that's the way it goes, right? I think that's the way it goes. But I think, and I there was somebody on Twitter recently. I know who just switched over from the left. I had reached out to her to do a video, and she actually thanked me for being, welcoming her and everything to the Libertarian. She was a Bernie supporter, and now she's a Libertarian.
The new girl on the block.
Yes, the new girl.
One was trying to figure out if she's Krista or not.
Wait, who?
So, Krista, the young Libertarian, was a.
Yes! Oh my God, that was like a year and a half ago. Though.
He ended up being like a sock account, like not real. And so,
I remember.
The girl shows up and she's like, "I'm a young girl. I'm a Libertarian. Used to be Bernie supporter," and everybody goes, "Krista."
But I mean, see that, but yeah.
Yeah, I want to give her the benefit of the doubt. Like, that's my. Like, I know that there's been so much catfishing in the Libertarian community. Like, I genuinely hope that she is, in fact, like a young girl who decided, Bernie sucks and I'm out of here. Like, that's great.
Exactly. Because I comment, I'm like, that's a pretty big leap. But in some ways it's not, because, I mean, Bernie's socialist, but he's also more of a Chomsky libertarian as well, if you really look at the policies. And, that's what I said Tulsi was. But yeah, so it's easier when you kind of look at the anti-war stuff. You look at a lot of the just some of the social issues, but then when you look at economics, it's completely the opposite, and the taxes and everything like that. That's not libertarian at all. But that's interesting that you put that together. Because I mean, I invited her on the channel just to come on and speak. She showed me screenshots of all the hate that she was getting from the left.
Oh, I saw that. I was on the receiving because I came from the left too. I
Yeah.
used to be a reporter.
Yeah.
I felt so much for her in that moment because I was like, I wanted to tell her like it gets better. Like they'll lose the
You stop.
but you know, like, they're gonna come after her right now because they think they can shame her into going back. You know, and
exactly.
That just drove me further in the other direction. Like, no, F you, you can't. I will do what you tell me. You know.
That's exactly what I'm thinking as well. Because yeah, like I said, she DM'd me and showed me the screenshots of multiple stuff, and she said, "I'm just worried I'm getting this heat right now." And that's exactly what I told her too. I said, I mean, I came from the conservative side. I've always been a libertarian ever since I've been on Twitter. So I've never been somebody that they've ever really gone after like that, because they feel more offended when they leave, because it's like they're losing than if
it's like an apostate.
They already have they already know who I am, and they know what I think, and I've never thought that. So you're right, but that's going to push people away into that state, and I don't know how people think that's gonna solve anything, you know. But that's the state of everything, and
I'm very encouraged to see her though, because when I came out, I was kind of a unicorn, and nobody ever was a Bernie Sanders supporter and then became an ANCAP. Like that's almost never happened. But I said at the time, if this is happening to me, this is happening to other people. Like I'm not that smart. So there are other people who are going to figure this out.
Oh yeah.
And I'm so encouraged to see like a young person, because they are more. I'm 37.
Yeah.
So I had some time before all of this stuff happened to develop who I was as a person. These young people, it's harder for them.
Absolutely.
And to see someone come out is heartening and encouraging to me.
It really is. I think, I mean, you're seeing more and more, because I mean, there's not as many younger conservatives, but there's a lot of young libertarians out there right now. I mean, just look at, I mean, your Twitter feed's probably as long as mine, with just, most of them are 20s and 20, you know, in their early 20s, like just turning 21, like 21st birthdays and stuff. I'm like, I'm 32, so me and you are pretty close, and it's just like, wow. But to take it back, so where I was linking that into the Gaia food stuff is that when a Hispanic company comes out and they praise Trump and they have this narrative that Trump hates Hispanics, they're going to receive it a lot worse than a company that's always supported Trump, or a company that's even like run by. So even like when Elon Musk says something positive about Trump, they don't go after him like they go after that, because he's more of a free thinker anyways. But he's also not the narrative that they've been pushing that Trump hates either.
Right. And so an interesting thing that I've been noticing, because my friends list on Facebook is still majority like raging liberal people.
Yeah.
So I still get
mine too.
I get a peek into that world, you know. And one thing I've noticed is that like all the you know, for example, Black conservatives. There are a bunch of Black conservatives coming out being like, hey, quit making a monolith out of Black people. I happen to be Black and I have a different opinion. So every time people put one of those videos up, they say, oh, you're using Black people to forward your narrative. Well, aren't you discounting the voices of Black people because they're not towing the narrative that you want to hear?
Yeah.
And so because you're now hearing a Black conservative, suddenly they're a sock, or they're being used or something like that.
Yeah.
That's very denigrating. That's
oh yeah,
racist, to be honest. And
absolutely. Honestly, did you watch my video with Wendy yet?
I haven't had an opportunity. I was sick all last week. So.
Oh yeah, go watch, because that's exactly what it is. Me and her, we talked about the state of the world, and she is a Black. She's more of a classic liberal, but she said on there she's voting Trump. You know, she refused to say Black Lives Matter and everything like that. So that's the same thing.
Liberal now means alt-right Nazi. So
no, classic liberal is libertarians, but libertarian is alt-right Nazi.
Anything that's basically to anything right of Bernie Sanders or
oh yeah,
consider themselves.
Yeah.
You're a Nazi basically. So
yeah,
that's
yeah, pretty much.
Which means if we're all Nazis, then Nazi doesn't mean anything.
Exactly. No, exactly. If that's if we're all racist, it doesn't mean anything either. So,
I mean, they push that word into the point of nonsense because they're only using it because they know you're not a racist.
Oh yeah.
The only reason people call you racist is because they know you're going to go, oh no, exactly. Not me, because it's the worst thing you could be.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and the idea that we have a racist culture where the worst thing you can be is a racist doesn't make any sense to me.
No, not at all. I agree 100%. It doesn't make any sense. And like they've used that word, they do the same thing in the LGBT community. They use a word and overuse homophobe and stuff like that, just to try to get under your skin. The words don't mean anything when you call trans people TERFs, honestly.
Oh my God, that is like literally nullifying. It's like putting two magnets together.
Yeah, and especially when it's cis men. I mean, I did my video on J.K. Rowling a few weeks ago, and it's like cis men calling me a TERF, and I had the screenshot in the video of one of them.
That's incredible to me.
Yeah.
That someone has the gall. I mean, that takes serious gall.
Yeah.
For a cis man to turn around and call a trans person a TERF. Like.
Yeah. Like, are you realizing that by your standard, you're a transphobe? Like, you're being transphobic right now, right? It's amazing. It doesn't make it.
We're in that weird Orwellian world where up is down, left is right, black is white. Like, the truth is a lie. It does, like, they want you to stand up and sit down so many times that you can't figure out what's going on your own.
Yeah.
And you have to rely on them. And everybody who says no, you know what the truth is.
Yeah.
Is being like, oh, you're a crazy person. No, I just know what the truth is.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what's crazy for me too, because it's the same, like you said, my Facebook is still, I mean, I'm in the LGBT and the EDM scene, which they both claim to be these super accepting places, but one of my a person I saw expressed kind of some of the same sentiments when it came to, I think she actually was posting All Lives Matters or something like that, or she said Black Lives Matters, and then something else, and then she wrote Hispanic Lives Matters, and she just went down the line and she said, yes, that's true, and she got hit hard from people on that, and I'm like, so you guys aren't this welcoming community when you really think about it. And I'm like, because, I mean, I don't hide who I am. I'm out here talking about the stuff that I talk about, and I post some of my videos on Facebook, and I'm like, you can see what I mean. And so you can't say that, that I've ever hidden who I was. I've lost friends for some of the stuff we've going through this whole ordeal that they disagreed with what I was saying with the whole riots and stuff like that. It just, I mean, it's a sad situation overall when you're looking at just the people that you're, like, you look over there and it's like, if you say one thing or that you like feared, like, I almost put myself in a proverbial closet for a little bit too, back into a closet, but more of a, I'm just not going to talk about this stuff, and I hope they don't find this stuff, but I can't. I'm like, hey, this is where my Twitter's at. This is my YouTube. If you have anything wrong with it,
what? Yeah.
I don't really care.
I'm in the same boat. I don't because I know my Facebook is so heavily leaning left. I don't try to start fights necessarily, but again, I don't hide who I am. This is where my Twitter is. This is where my YouTube is. I mean, you know what I'm saying.
Well, I did the same thing. So I actually, about 2 years ago, I had gotten like so wrapped up in like just commenting on posts on Facebook, and then I was in Twitter, and then I was on everything, and I just basically at that point go, and even my friends that I've known for a long time that post political stuff, I start muting and I start unfollowing. Well, not muting, but I unfollow them because I'm like, I basically cleansed, and I was doing really good until a lot of this stuff, but I cleansed my Facebook of politics, and all it is just to see how people are doing, see pictures and everything like that. Same with my Instagram. I don't like seeing politics on Instagram. I leave everything for Twitter.
Like, if you're putting anything besides food and titties on Instagram, you're using it wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I use it to advertise and stuff like that. But I have 2 different Instagrams, actually 3. One for my business, one for my DJ, and one for my personal.
Wiggle room in between those 2 things, but
What's
like,
that? Yeah.
it's not for politics. Like,
Yeah.
leave that shit on Twitter.
Yeah. Well, I don't put any politics on any of it. But
Well, I had a horrible fight with my mother on Facebook in March, or maybe early April, and she hasn't talked to me since then. And I was just like, you know, relationships are so much more important than politics. That it's not important enough to me that to argue about mask mandates and all that kind of stuff is just not important enough to me that I not have a relationship with my mother.
Yeah, exactly.
I went through and I started doing the same thing where I was like muting, or it's not muting on Facebook, it's unfollowing. So I have followed like 100 people, and man, my relationships with my friends and family are great right now because I'm just not. I don't have the urge to tell them to go fuck themselves every day. Like, it's great. So
yeah. Well, I'm the same way with Facebook. My dad one time came out and he commented on a post that I had made, and then instead of going on there, or no, he didn't even comment on it. He texted me instead, so it wasn't on there. But he's like, I didn't want to tell you were wrong on there, and we disagreed on it. And after that point, then he was just like, I'm sorry I even brought it up. Because then it was like he's like, I don't want you mad at me. I'm like, I'm not mad, but like I said, my dad's more conservative too, but he's also the person that likes to get on Facebook and argue.
Well, the trip was I actually closed down my Facebook because I thought this is such a toxic environment. And every time I get an app, I feel like crappy, and I don't my friends, and like, so I was like, I'm getting rid of it. And then 3 months after I got rid of it, my mother got a Twitter, and I was like, oh God, like for my mother's faults, she's a nice old lady, and she doesn't belong on Twitter. That place is a hellscape, and that poor little woman doesn't belong there. So I was like, okay, Mom, I'll go get a Facebook. I'll open my Facebook back up. And then within a week, her and I had gotten in such a bad Facebook fight that she's still not talking to me. I should get over it. Like, come on, woman. So now I have the Facebook again. And it's horrible. You still talk with this entire social media thing. And it's like, can we not realize that this is not worth it? It's not worth the relate. That's like the same thing with anything. I'm just like, my friendships and stuff like that are more than politics, and I would hope that for them it is, but that's like why I lost a few friends this time, because they were pushing like supporting violence and even putting out like Antifa stuff on there, and I called them on it. I'm like, I said the last thing that they did was post like Antifa protest plans, but they had like literally, I mean, they were protest plans. They didn't really say Antifa on them, but they had like fire brigade or something like that, where they like there were certain roles that were set up to like throw stuff at police, and one was actually like throw the Molotov cocktails and stuff like that. I'm like, dude, this is a battle plan. This is not this is, because then there was like even the cyber warfare types. I'm like, I can tell you every single thing you have on there where that matches into a military role, and that's what this is based off of. The crazy thing is I see a lot of my Facebook friends posting about how police in Portland are pulling protesters off the streets into vans. They're going to secret locations.
Yeah.
Horrifying.
Yeah.
But the counter to that is all these people are doing is graffitiing. And I'm like, well, hold on a minute. That's not the only thing that's going on. They're not just graffitiing the walls. They're using explosive. Like, so I don't condone the secretive police kidnappings.
Yeah,
Like,
actually, this is great because I had this on my list of stuff that we could talk about. So this is the Portland police is, well, it's not even police, and I was at first like, are we sure that those are police officers? Because federal agents don't wear police on their uniforms usually. Normally, they have their agency listed of whatever whenever they're out. It just didn't make any sense. It seemed like something like the CIA would do, like under the cover of darkness.
Mm-hmm. And we just had the recent classification of Antifa as a terrorist organization, which
So
at the time, I was like, yeah, that's how they send you to Guantanamo Bay, and nobody ever hears from you ever again. And lo and behold, they're throwing these kids into vans and shit like that. So,
well, that's and it does. I mean, I think that it was even. I think it was verified because at first it was kind of like thunder. But I think it was, who was it? I think it was DHS that verified that it was federal agents.
Yeah.
So you're right. I mean, is this what it means? Now Trump is even starting to talk about putting them into other cities and stuff like that. I'm like, no, we can't stand for this either. I mean, yes. It doesn't matter that it's where it's at, if it's in liberal cities and stuff like that. It's really what's the president doesn't have this power. Like, this is basically this is militarization of a federal force. This is what the Constitution does not allow us to do with our soldiers. You know,
absolutely.
So
there's this.
They're doing it.
There's this whole argument I've been hearing a lot of. We're setting a precedent. We're setting a precedent. We're setting a precedent. First of all, I'd like to say, no, we're not. This happens and has happened for a while on a smaller scale to other individuals.
Yeah.
It's being done now in, you can see it going on camera because there are these public riots going on in Portland.
Oh, yeah.
But it's not as though this is a precedent. The government can and does kidnap people. You may or may not ever hear from them again. They may or may not file. And this is not new things that have happened.
Yeah.
There are many cases. I'm trying to think of the guy in the late 80s who tried to blow the lid off of some of what the CIA was doing. And he committed suicide after trying to break this story and things of that nature. So it's to say that it's a precedent kind of means that you're just sort of not aware of what the government has been doing all along.
Yeah.
That's fine. If you're just now becoming aware of it, good. You're aware of it now.
Yeah.
But you can Google the way that the U.S. government operates in other countries, and the hubris to believe that they would never do it here is just silly on your part. Not you specifically, but anybody who might believe they're not supposed to do that here. Well, they're not supposed to be doing it anywhere, and they do. So what makes you think they're supposed to do it here?
Well, we know it's happening in other countries because we have, Gitmo and everything like that.
Yep.
Yeah, you're right. But those people are not U.S. citizens, so that's always been this is why we're allowed to do it, because they're not U.S. citizens, so they don't have the same rights as U.S. citizens. Under U.S. citizens have to be, there's a set, there is it's, they have due process. They have Fifth Amendment rights. They have, they have to.
They have that written on a paper somewhere. It doesn't mean that it happens. So, and there are plenty of people who don't get due process who are U.S. citizens. And I mean, if you are a Spanish-speaking, Spanish heritage person who is a U.S. citizen and you forget your ID at home, they'll send you to a prison in another state, and you're never going to be allowed to call a lawyer because of how you look.
Yeah.
And, this is a point that George Carlin, and, George Carlin's a comedian, but he made this point so very well, which is that rights as presented by the U.S. government are a set of privileges that can be taken away from you at any moment. Because look at what happened to the Japanese Americans in 1942. Their rights that they were born with in this country, they're born Americans, born on our soil. Their rights were snapped away from them instantaneously because of their last name and where their parents came from. And they were placed in concentration camps. And that happened in our country. So a lot of people bag on me because I say I'm not going to fill out the census and they can suck my whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not, because the 1940 census was how the US government was able to round up the Japanese Americans.
Yeah.
Because there was no reason that they were Japanese on a census. Like, screw that. I threw both of them in the trash. And if they want to come make a case out of it, I'll tell them the same thing. This is the proud tradition that you're part of, which is rounding up Japanese Americans and placing them in concentration camps.
Yep.
So the idea of precedent has been set long.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Has there been anything that has come out that tells where they're taking these people and who these people are that they're taking away?
My only reference for this kind of thing is maybe some of the black sites that they had in Chicago.
Okay.
That nobody would know that this place is for detention. The vehicles that they were being loaded into looked like civilian vehicles. They were minivans.
Yeah.
And so a lot of careful steps are taken to ensure that no one knows.
Yeah.
This place is a prison, or that the people being held here are being held against their will. They're being held without due process or trial or representation, and it may be indefinitely.
Okay.
That's there were black sites that the Chicago Police Department was using to interrogate people off of the books. And some of the stories coming out of that were straight up torture, that people were tortured. So if they're going to torture Iraqis, why aren't they going to torture Antifa?
Oh, they would. Yeah.
They would. Yeah, they would torture you or I. They would torture anyone.
Oh yeah.
Especially if we knew which one of them was raping kids, they would do that. So Ghislaine Maxwell better be making peace with her God, is all I have to say.
Oh, absolutely. I think you're right on that too. Yeah, it was, I mean, even just putting them in vans and stuff like that, it was kind of weird. But it was also weird how, like, I think I've only seen one or two videos on it, from it. And that the one main video that they keep showing, it was so like non-confrontational. He just walked into the van with them. So sometimes you also think that he might be undercover, and like that person might be the undercover agent.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because just how easy it went. I mean, but there's also companies that'll go out there that you can hire just to basically ghost you too, right? Like take you away, and because you want to start a new life somewhere else. And it's kind of like I mean, it could be them pulling them in the same way, like to give all the dirt on the leadership. And that is how they put them into witness protection program or something like that too. So it's very possible. It could be, there's multiple reasons for it, but I don't, being federal government going in and policing, that's not right either. And like you said, they would do it they would put you away for forever though.
Yeah, especially they wouldn't even need a good reason. Antifa's giving them plenty.
Oh yeah.
It's like crazy because the idea that we were talking about this before. All they're doing is graffitiing the walls. No, they're not. They're beating people bloody. They're taking over the streets. They've taken over that city. Are we supposed to leave the residents of that city to a communist anarchist group?
Yeah.
Like, are we really supposed to do that? So, there were a lot of half measures. Oh, geez, I'm sorry. The lightning scared the crap out of me.
Oh, it's starting there now too.
Yeah, that was a big boom. I'm sorry. Okay, so
I know I keep hearing it too, so it's going.
Gosh, I don't remember what I was saying now. Oh, okay, yeah. So like the idea that these poor innocent protesting kids who just want justice and aren't doing anything except for using paint on a wall. That's not what's happening. No. Their violence, like it's all on videotape. So the people out there who are insisting that all these people are doing is using graffiti is very dishonest. Yeah. Does that make it okay that the federal government might kidnap them? No.
No.
But I had it suggested to me yesterday that all of this might lead to the federalization of police, that people are so disenchanted with their own local police departments that they would invite the idea of a federally overseen police. And I'm like, you see what's going on in Portland, right? Like that's what federal police is going to be. So
Yeah.
if you invite more power from the federal government into local policing, that's the result. You
Yeah,
know,
federalization of the police force is just a way to skirt the Constitution. They're naming them police instead of military,
right?
and that is a violation of the Constitution as well. I mean, federal funds should not be going towards policing cities. I mean, period.
The mayors and the governor in that state really dropped the ball because they did a lot of half measures,
Yeah,
and they could have cleared this up when it was early on, and now it's grown to such a point that this isn't about Black Lives Matter, this isn't about George Floyd any longer.
yeah.
They simply use this as their opportunity to enact their Tommy revolution, or whatever the fuck it is.
1 second. Dogs barking.
The workers are not going to drop their tools and come join you.
Yeah.
That's not how this works. And in fact, in Russia, the Bolsheviks had to take over the government. It wasn't they got the workers to join them.
No.
They took over the government and they started killing people.
Yeah.
Every single one of these Antifa people that are like, can you believe that they're throwing us into vans? They would throw every one of you into a van too if they had the opportunity.
Yes,
Doesn't
they would.
It doesn't make what's happening to them okay.
Yeah.
But just know that if those people got in power, they would use the same tactics, because these are the tactics of the state. This is what they want to empower, and they're getting a taste of their own medicine.
Yep, absolutely.
No, it's just
absolutely. No, you're absolutely right.
It's an interesting point to point out that the motive of the very people who are being thrown into these vans by secret police is to watch the type of government that would throw people into vans with secret police.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
they're not even ashamed about admitting that they
no.
You know, use the imagery of the guillotine without
yeah.
You know,
they use the French Revolution as an example.
Yeah.
I mean,
and I want to point out that everybody who rolled out the guillotine eventually ended up beneath it.
Yeah.
So I would be very careful about, supporting that kind of imagery, because it not only did Robespierre and all the other Danton and all the other people end up beneath it, but so did 55,000 innocent French people who considered themselves revolutionaries for the most part.
And you don't even have to look too far, really, because it's not a guillotine. But when you look at, as we talked about earlier, cancel culture, everybody who has propped up cancel culture is starting to realize that they will eventually be canceled because of what they've done. Look at Jimmy Kimmel was the latest one. Actually, there's been others since, but he was the main one who was like decrying like everything. And then conservatives were always like, well, what about this? What about this skit that you did? What about this skit that you did where you wore blackface? And then it finally took time for the left to come up with it. So if you've done anything in your past, they're gonna find it and you're gonna get it. So why are you supporting something like that?
Winston Churchill, when talking about the policy of appeasement when it came to Hitler, said that appeasement is feeding the crocodile in hopes that he will eat you last.
Mm-hmm.
And that rings so true to me. And when
oh my gosh,
culture war, that
you're
feeding the crocodile. The crocodile's coming. You're just feeding it others in hopes that they will pass by. It's not going to. They're going to eat you.
No, it's gonna. You can't expect that. You can't. You're absolutely right. And just kind of going into that direction as well, we could say, I mean, it's amazing to see, to me, all the anti-Semitism going on. There are so many people, celebrities and everything like that going on right now that, I mean, they're like one step away from saying Hitler wasn't that bad of a guy, right? I mean, that's where they're at this point. Nick Cannon basically went on, and that's what he said. It's like, oh yeah, everything about Jewish people. It's amazing to watch right now, and it's scary to watch.
We've seen a resurgence in like old school racism, like the really kind of like really super gross stuff that you kind of thought was the realm of your grandparents. And oh thank God, that stuff has died off. Well, now it's being spoken by the people who claim to be inclusive and claim to be anti-racist.
Well, it's the people that it affected before, right? I mean, when you see people like even in CHOP, or Chaz or whatever you want to call it, when you see them setting up like their field for blacks only, like this area separate, like separate but equal is not, but they want separate to be more equal. They want higher privilege when they start saying that, because I mean the Supreme Court ruled separate was not equal, and that's what the civil rights movement was about. And now they're going back to, they want to go back to pre-civil rights era. It's amazing. It's amazing to see.
And it's the people who are claiming to be the woke people.
Yeah.
In the conservative people, the so-called racists, they're the ones saying, accept everybody as they are. Don't judge people by their skin color.
Yeah.
And suddenly that's the wrong attitude. Like, at what point does, like, because it's like that you have to be, it's not enough simply not to be racist, you have to be actively anti-racist, which sets up a presupposition that as a person who's not racist, you somehow are racist.
Yes. So, and actually that's great, because that's the next thing on my list.
I'm really good at that. I was doing Make Liberty Great, and he literally asked me, do you have a copy of my list?
I know. Can you see my? Actually, it's not, but I was gonna, so I was gonna say on Joe's comments on
Joe Jorgensen.
Yeah. Now those were Sahlwerk's, was it Nick's words before they were her words, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now I talked about this with Wendy too. In my opinion, I think it was worded incorrectly at the beginning. I can see a campaign using speech like that. I know it upset a lot of libertarians, but a campaign needs to use the pejorative we, right? It needs to, we need to do this. And so when she clarified it, that's exactly what she did, was say these systemic racist policies, like the war on drugs and stuff like that, that's what we need to get rid of, but not support any organization by that name. And so I just wanted to get your thoughts on where you stood with all that.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, like, so we have a twofold problem here. Is one is she was using Twitter, where you have this like limited set of characters in which to make your point, and so you kind of have to make this like truncated point. And so I hadn't heard that clarification. I do appreciate that, because I agree with it. I think there are systemic racism written into our system just based on how we've come up through history. And it's fine to recognize those and say, okay, let's dismantle these. But of course you have this like culture war going on at the exact same time, where if you don't swear allegiance to a Marxist organization that's taking in money, that you're somehow also now in support of the KKK or something like that. How there's no spectrum. You're just either a Black Lives Matter supporter or you're with Hitler.
It's and then like we just said, that's the Marxist Black Lives Matter organization wants to be like, they're the ones that are actually pushing a lot of the anti-racist rhetoric. They're starting to sound more and more like the Nation of Islam by the day. So
I live in Atlanta. So do you. So there's a lot of those guys. They are crazy.
Yeah.
The things that the neuromelanin. I don't know if you heard about this, but that people with more melanin, if you're Black, you get information from sunlight because melanin. And so white people are less superior because they don't have the melanin to take in the information from the sun.
Yeah.
So it's like, and this is not, I'm not making this up. There are videos of Matter leaders, people who are leaders of that movement, making these kinds of statements. So it's like, I'm not saying that I don't think the statement Black Lives Matter is true.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we talked about too. It's like two things can be true at the same time.
Yeah.
So, and that's where we ended up going with that, is the same direction. And it was like, but then it's here in Atlanta too. There is that it's basically stemmed from the Black Lives Matter, but it's the Black Power movement. That it's not the Black Panthers anymore. It's something else, and they're really violent. Like that's the one. I can't remember who it was, but I mean, there's a lot of the protests and stuff like that down in South City. So
I think I don't necessarily know that I associate what the Black Panthers were with the Black Israelite movement. Like that's definitely like different goals and different kinds of people that support the organization and things like that. I think like the Black Panthers definitely have like a lot of really good stuff that they support, which is like the arming of Black people, you know, and things of that nature, which I completely support. Like I think an armed society is a polite society.
Oh, absolutely.
I want, you know, Black guns matter too.
Oh, well, that's why I always said, yeah. So that's the thing is, you know, I always say anti-gun laws are anti-racist as well. I mean, that's systemic racism if you're talking about it. And same with, I mean, it's anti-Black, it's anti-gay, it's anti-women. I mean, all of that gun laws are against. It's only for, you know, the most powerful and the elites that don't want gun laws.
And they avail themselves of guns because all of their security people are armed to the teeth.
Oh, exactly.
Especially the ones who are against or who support gun laws. They're definitely walking around with armed security.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. But even though like the early on Black Panthers organization, even I think the actual like the new Black Panther Party can be seen as a Black supremacist group though. If I I don't know a lot of their philosophies, but they're the ones that are at guns, you know, and at the voting booths and stuff like that. And
we did have, I don't know if you saw the story about Stone Mountain, that there were armed people walking around in the parking lot asking the people waiting in traffic for reparations.
Oh, and so that's the group. No, that is the group.
Okay.
That's the group that was yelling about, you know, Black, they were chanting it as they were walking, Black Power.
Yeah. So however, they walked up to a guy in a van and they said, oh, you know, are you going to give us some reparations? And he's like, get the fuck out of here. I don't owe you anything. And then they walked him. So it's not like, you know, that guy said, I'm not going to give you anything. And then they pointed a gun in his face.
Yeah.
It would be a whole different set of circumstances.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know what they expected him to do. Was he supposed to pull out his wallet and give him a 20? And then he gives you a 20 and then you walk off and RIP racism? Like,
yeah, I don't know. Yeah. So, I did see that video though, because that was at like, I think it was at the fireworks.
Yeah.
It?
Yeah. It was like right before the 4th of July or right, because, you know, they do several days of fireworks.
Well, I didn't remember. I was in the mountains during that week. So I was getting away from everything.
So, you know, I think rather than choosing to use divisive language, which no matter which way you slice it, even if you feel in your heart that Black Lives Matter, which I do, I feel Black Lives Matter.
Absolutely.
I feel the words Black Lives Matter have now become divisive, as everything in our society has. You can't say these words without causing emotional reaction.
Yeah.
So, you know, instead we could angle toward language like ending qualified immunity. Find me a person who's not, you know, aside from like the cops themselves who benefit from the qualified immunity, want to end qualified immunity, ending no-knock warrants. Let's be solutions-based. Black Lives Matter, while it's a wonderful thing to say, is just, you know, it's a thing to say. It's a slogan.
Yeah.
It's not a solution. Ending qualified immunity is a solution. Ending no-knock warrants is a solution. Ending the drug war is a solution.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you sure you didn't watch my video with Wendy?
I'm sure. Yeah.
Because you're talking the same as me.
I was so sick last week, and then my my husband's coworker, they had to Rona. We thought we had Rona, but no, it turns out we don't. So,
yeah. So my viewers, you see, I'm not the only one saying this. Wendy's not the only one saying this. we didn't prep this at all. me and Jessica I don't script anything on my show. We just kind of talk. So
come from the left. So my motivations are things like, I want there to be diversity. I want there to be, equality under the law, things of that nature. That's what is my motivation in this.
Yeah.
I see movements like Black Lives Matter as only hurting the cause. This is no longer benefiting the cause.
Yeah.
So if it were truly about like ending police brutality, we would put down the fancy slogans. We would put down, and that just enables the people in power to they put a little sign up, they wave a little flag, and then they don't actually have to change anything. They don't have to do anything.
Yep.
Whereas if
I said the same thing about.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Which is like if you come to them with end qualified immunity, that's different.
Yeah.
That requires an action. That requires something on the part of the person. Giving them a slogan that they can paint on the street and walk away is a cop-out. That leaves them able to get out without doing it.
Yeah, so that's what I even talked about with the black square. I said it's basically the hashtag. If you put a black square, it makes people feel like they did something when they didn't do anything. All they did was, show they're not racist. I mean, I don't know. Like they didn't actually do anything. They literally, it took them 2 seconds, and they're like, "Hey, I did something." It's kind of like that South Park episode, the Scars for the Cause. They don't actually do anything, and they don't even take the money and go anywhere. But you're wearing the bracelet.
Well, God, is South Park ever desperately needed in times like these?
I think their new season is going to come out pretty soon too. So
it's slacktivism. It's you don't have to actually do anything, change anything.
Yep.
Oh
yeah.
It's not.
It really is. It is. And you're right, because people don't want to hear what the actual solutions are, and they don't want to actually get to the root cause of many issues. Okay, because I had an issue with what the president said about what he said about stirring the pot. He when it was about black people are killed more often than white people, and I had all those stats, and that's what me and Wendy really talked about. Or white people are killed more than black people, but it's a lot more nuanced than that, and we need to be having the root cause discussions and getting down to what those causes are. And that was the first step that me and Wendy took last week, was because we need to get down to those root causes. And it's policy based, and yes, there's a lot of nuances when it comes to what the stats are and what the stats to look at are, because where he might look at the actual, like the percentage stat, somebody else can look at the percentage per
like population concentration. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, that's what that's how often they see with people, how often they are with police officer, like how often they interact with police officers. But like even what the president said was, it was factual, but it wasn't in a sense that I actually had the stats written out, and I actually read the stats last week. But it was like 0.00041% of white people are killed by police each year. 0.005 or 0.005 black people are killed. So it does affect black people more, and you can't deny that. But what's the reason for that at that point? And like you said, qualified immunity is probably the biggest issue that we have to talk about when it comes to policing.
If an individual police officer is a racist, because like you have an officer that's not, and he's not gonna use that system to hurt anyone based on race. But you have racist police officers, and they are going to use those systems to enact the racism. Yep. So the way to handle that is not to browbeat him into not being a racist anymore, because that's not gonna work.
No, you're not gonna do that.
You remove the structural systems that allow him to enact his racism on other people. Yeah. And so I have a lot of problem with people who like use their social media to yell at their friends and family about dismantling structures of racism. It's like that person has no more power than you do to dismantle a structure.
Yeah.
The people the people who are posting exactly the right things, the right woke symbols, Nancy Pelosi going out there with her African garb and kneeling and then desperately trying to stand up on her heels. She does all the right things, says all the right things, makes all the right overtures, and she's the one who has the power. Those people have the power to dismantle those systems, and they don't. So saying the right things means nothing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so you're going to yell at your parents, you're going to yell at your aunts and uncles on Facebook and tell them, and they're like, what do you want me to do? I want you to dismantle the systems. Well, how is a plumber from Nantucket going to dismantle a fucking systematic racism?
Yeah.
Like, give him a break here.
Come on now. I don't,
Get realistic. Start pointing that ire and pointing that anger at the people who are actually in charge of the power structures, and those people say all the right things.
And understand what the actual system that you're talking about is, because I think that people, they think they know, but they have no idea, you know, who they're actually voting for and what these policies are doing. They're looking at the policies on their face. They're not looking what they actually do, right?
Even just what the policy is named.
What's that? Oh yeah.
Sometimes it's just the name, and you can bet your boots that if a policy says policy to dismantle racism, you can pretty much bet that policy is keeping racism in place. Whatever you name the thing.
Oh yeah.
It's doing the opposite.
well, that's and Democrats always throw money at it, but by throwing money at it, they're making people more reliant on the system, and then perpetuating it even more.
Yeah.
And that's to keep the division going. You know, it's the division of power, because that's all it is. It's a classist system, and it's the division of power. Whereas the people in power, they don't care what actually happens down here. They are sitting in their ivory towers, and they would actually rather destroy the system than actually fix it. Because even like I said it before too, is people like Al Sharpton and stuff like that, they would not have a job if there wasn't racism. Democrats won't have anything to go against Republicans on if there was no racism and everything like that. So they don't want to fix the system. They just want to keep power.
What would the corporate press do without Donald Trump at this point? Like, he's their cash cow.
He is. I mean, that's why, all you hear is everything about Trump.
Yeah. And it's easy. Like, my liberal friends talk about Trump far more than my conservative friends do. I'm inundated with
no, you're right.
Liberals.
Yeah, you're right. I liberals talk about politics more than anybody else I see as well, from what on my Facebook as well, you know. But it is. I mean, they talk about Trump, and I'm just like, I'm not even a Trump supporter. It was even crazy this weekend. So a story from this last weekend, my neighbor and her boyfriend and her other friend came over, and we were hanging out, and I have the rainbow "Don't Tread on Me" flag, like right next to my computer where my DJ stuff is. So I was like right to the left-hand side of me right now.
I love that flag.
And he basically goes, "Are you like, Republican?" And like he started asking politic questions, and I'm just like, "Aren't we partying here or something?" Like, I'm like, "No, I'm not a Trump supporter, but that is," and he basically told me that the rainbow, like the "Don't Tread on Me" part was triggering. And I'm like, wait, but then it really irked me, because then he was basically going off and telling me, basically trying to shame his girlfriend because she was a Trump. He calls her a Trumpist, and she's like, "I don't even support Trump anymore. I might have voted for him, but." It really irked me, like the whole situation. I'm like, I'm here just to have fun. I don't really want to talk politics on a Saturday night, especially after I just got done DJing and I'm playing sets, and we're playing music. Why are we even getting into this? I'm not going to be the person to bring it up.
we have a friend of ours, a friend of our family, whose name I will not mention, even though he will never watch this. He got into it with my husband really hardcore on Facebook about politics. And we were supposed to go to a dinner party that night, but I didn't feel very good. So I ended up saying, hey, I'm not going to go. And therefore my husband didn't go. And I know that he was just waiting for my husband to get there so that they could like fight about politics with each other.
Yeah.
And when my husband didn't show up, he ended up bullying one of our other friends. Her cheesecake that she made and she brought was not very good. So he like bullied her about it until the point where she cried and she left. And it was like, he just had, I know in my gut, I'm like, you had all that energy that you wanted to unleash and you didn't get the opportunity.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the state of things right now, that like, we're willing to destroy our relation. We were talking about this before, just destroy our relationships with our friends and family over politics. And that's there's supposed to be some kind of nobility in that. And, you know, what are you going to stand on top of a pile of skulls and say, I was right, you know, all by yourself? Good luck.
Yeah, I mean, you can't, you just can't. I mean, I really don't care about anybody's politics. And like, you know, I can talk to anybody about politics. Like, even on this channel, I'm trying to get somebody at least reasonable from the left to like move their content onto this channel, because I want this to be somewhat we can bring everybody together, you know,
so
in this space.
Anarchist communist.
What's that?
I have a friend, and he's a very dear friend of mine, and I love him. And he's an communist anarchist.
Okay.
And I'm gonna try and get him on my show. And once I think everybody's gonna want to talk to him, because he's actually a really reasonable person, and his commentary is completely reasonable.
Okay.
So yeah, we all have
tell him that I want, if he wants, then we're trying to do this channel and have him move everything over here if he wants to join our little club over here.
I told him, I said, I'm gonna make you famous on Liberty Twitter, and he's like, oh God, don't do that. They'll ruin you.
don't ruin me from the left, right? Because then he can't hide in his spaces. But so you're talking anarchy communist, and I've never really heard that before. And what I was actually going to ask you was how you felt as because you're a ANCAP, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I was gonna see
in the libertarian vein.
Yeah. So what because it kind of irked me even a little bit too when like even the riot started and everything like that. They were saying they just want anarchy. I'm like, that's not anarchy, guys. Come on. So what did you think about them using anarchy in such a bastardized way?
I'm glad you asked this, because this is something that like I actually I've thought about this a lot. A couple of months before, I would say maybe at the end of last year, there was a female MMA fighter. Her name is Tara LaRosa, and she's a conservative. And she's very vocal on Twitter. And she had used the word anarchist when describing something that she was talking about. These people are anarchists.
Yeah.
And Liberty Twitter just roasted her, like, press her up for dinner, And I was like, guys, first of all, you're not doing our side any favors by being nasty about this. Secondly, colloquially, the word anarchy in the most pedestrian sense of the word is about chaos.
Okay.
When you're talking to the average person on the street and they hear the word anarchy, that is their association. So to fault, LaRosa or Trump or anyone else for using a word in the colloquial way it's silly. Now, you can sit down with somebody and have a reasonable conversation where you lay out why anarchy is, the of the state and all these kinds of things. But those are theoretical ideas, and you need to present them well.
Yeah, it's a political theory, and so it's used in two different ways. I guess that's just saying, it can mean two different ways. It can mean two different things, because that's kind of the way I talked about it too. Was I again, I don't really go too far in bashing people, but I just said that's not what anarchy is under some of the. I said this is not what anarchy. I said anarchy is a political theory of the absence of the state, and anarchy and communism are not far apart in the political theory aspect of it.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you listened to the episode that I did with Emily Quaterone. She's a gender studies professor at American University.
No, I have not watched it.
Yeah, we did an episode about intersectional feminism, and it might interest you, actually. It was my episode 3 on the Jessica Green Show.
I will look at it.
One of the things that Emily brings up is that the way that an idea is disseminated, they can take a word like intersectional feminism, and there are enough think pieces written about it by people who are not educated in the actual theory that really misconstrue what it means. Nowadays, you say intersectional feminism, and the first thing, that the pedestrian thing that comes to mind is like oppression Olympics.
Yes.
You know, this person they're trans and they're Black and they're disabled and they're a woman, and or whatever the list of things that you might have that makes you the top of the oppression pyramid, and whatever. That's not actually what that's about.
Yeah.
And Emily takes careful time sitting down with me to actually like explain what intersectional feminism is supposed to be about. And I'm like, I completely sympathize with her, because anarchy is received the same way.
Yeah.
Sort of like freshman level thinkers who don't understand the theory, they just understand the pedestrian use of the term.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, so now I'm edified for being able to sit down and talk to somebody who otherwise I would maybe sort of instantaneously say, I disagree with you.
Yeah.
So by her being willing to calmly dialogue with me and explain the minutia of the idea, I was able to say, oh, okay, I had a pedestrian understanding, and then there's like the theoretical understanding, and that's how I feel about anarchy. So when Trump is using anarchist, I'm not all like, oh, he's ruining the concept of anarchy. No, he's not. He's using words that everybody understands.
Yeah.
And if somebody knowing that I'm an anarchist or that I identify as an anarchist that approaches me and says, what about this? I can say, here's what I believe. Here's the theory behind what I believe. And that's a much better venue than going on Twitter and mobbing someone who may have anarchy in the inappropriate way.
Yeah. Anytime it's a mob mentality, like, like you know, my tweets are generally more, well, what's that?
Reasonable?
Yeah, it's like, well, it's not necessarily what you're talking about. But some people just want to, every day you see those tweets, though. It's like, they just want to go off on something. It's just like, wait a second. Yeah. Educate.
It's
and
easy. It's not something I expect most people to do, because it's hard to sit down and hear something. Human brains are not meant to assimilate information that disagrees with them. That's not good for our survival in nature.
Yeah.
Tribalism is very good for survival in nature.
Yeah.
Fortunately, it makes the political situation awful.
Yeah, that's true. Like, that's even like, I'm looking at I want to buy some land up in North Georgia for my prepping area, but it's going to be like container houses and stuff, and then have like be like a commune up there, because it's like, it's tribalism other than the individual. So that's absolutely fine. That still makes me a libertarian, because I want to do that.
Absolutely. Yeah, we used to live in downtown Atlanta, like smack right in the middle of 14th and Monroe, like center of the city. Yeah. And little by little, year by year, we got further out. And now I'm all like, when can we get to the Blue Ridge Mountains?
Well, that's where I'm looking at as well. That's just my getaway spot. I was up in rural Tennessee in these beautiful cabins up there too, and I was like, okay, this is great for a vacation place. And the place I was staying at was absolutely gorgeous. But you need somewhere like that. You need to be able to get out there and clear your head. I called it clearing the fog from the everyday social media. There was so much going on that it actually worked so well, because now I'm more motivated than ever. And I came up with all these different, I worked a lot while I was there, but it cleared everything up and put everything into an order. And then I actually got more creative and built more stuff. So
when the coronavirus stuff was just first hitting, and it was like, I don't know, March and April, and we were all feeling like the mental stress of all this lockdown stuff. I went out one day. The sun was shining, the birds were chirping, my neighbors' kids were running around, they were talking to each other. I'm like, everything's fine.
Yeah.
Like, if I go in my house and I sit there in front of my television, I'll be like clinging to my pillow, going, "Oh my God, the world is ending."
Yeah.
I turn the screen off and I go outside, everything's fine.
Yep.
And then, so we're sort of choosing our adventure in that.
It really is. And even just being like, not last weekend, but the weekend before, I even went to a rave. One of the places in Atlanta was open, and it was fun. I mean, I posted pictures. I mean, wearing a mask and everything like that, and it's fine. I've been able to get to the gym and everything like that, and like, cause Lifetime's open, so it's like, it's just something normal, and they're doing great jobs of social distancing and everything like that. So it's just kind of like, and that's why I posed that question on Twitter last week, was like, I just said, for libertarian and conservative Twitter, would you, in order to get everything back to normal, if masks work and we had a magic button, could get everything back to normal, would you be okay with mask mandates? And for me, at this point, to save the economy and just get things back to normal, I probably would. I'd just be like, okay, because a mask is not an inconvenience if it means that we can, businesses are opening back up and everything like that. Unfortunately, nobody's having that discussion. So it was a hypothetical, but.
I mean, I understand the nature of rejecting a mask mandate on the sense that it's a mandate. But I think that we've really done ourselves a disservice in making mask wearing so political, in the sense that if you don't wear a mask, I'm going to call you stupid. I'm going to call you awful. I had a girl on my Facebook account calling people who don't wear masks plague rats. That's very interesting that you would use such dehumanizing language to describe people, because the next step after dehumanizing language is that you can hurt people. And that's why you call people rats. You call them rats so that it's okay to kill them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they had such an issue when Trump called MS-13 members animals.
Fascinating how rules for some don't work. Oh,
yeah. But you're right. And that's where I wish we could get to, is like, just let people have personal choice. But they don't want, I mean, a lot of people don't want personal choice. They want to force you to wear a mask. And they don't realize, like, hey, if you're wearing a mask, then why does it really matter that much? Like, it's so, like, you're right.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you're absolutely right. It's amazing how people can just automatically, one little thing, but it goes with everything, not just masks, it goes with everything. They assume one thing about you. Yeah.
And, I think we'd get a lot further by, instead of saying anybody who doesn't wear a mask is an asshole, anybody who doesn't wear a mask is stupid, you could be like, hey, look at this new data that's come out. Hey, this is what they did some scientific studies about masks and what they discovered. I'm like, I think stuff goes way further. You encourage them, empower them with knowledge, and that's what knowledge does, is it empowers people. So you encourage and empower rather than denigrate and dehumanize. A lot of the people who don't want to wear a mask now would be perfectly happy to do so. But instead, you called them stupid, and you called them rats, and you called them all these things. They're going to be like, F you. I'm not doing what you want me to do.
Absolutely. No, you're absolutely right. Yeah. Like we talked about earlier with people on the left that come to the right, that's only pushing further into their position. People don't like to, it's human nature to be like, I'm not, like, to do something in spite of somebody else. So if you're, like you said, if you're calling and stuff, it's like, you know what, I'm not going to change my position so they can tell me I told you so. So now I'm just going to do that. And so that's part of the problem that we have right now as well. Because even originally I was kind of like, mask, whatever. And I've been wearing a mask more and more lately too. I mean, but it's not because, but even for me, it's kind of like, I don't want to be shamed into wearing a mask. I do it because, places that I go mandated, and I'm not going to boycott because a business is protecting themselves.
I think it's perfectly fine for businesses to mandate. Like if
Yeah.
Walmart decides across all its stores that it wants you to wear a mask, perfectly fine by me. You're a private business. This is your property. If I want to come onto your
Yeah.
property, I have to observe your rules.
I mean, Walmart requires masks, but they don't require pants, which is completely crazy.
Yeah.
But you're right. It is. It's private property is another.
We'll be fine.
Private property rights are an important aspect to it. That's the other thing that the people that are talking about mask stuff don't understand. It's like, if the companies should be, I mean, why are you visiting places that don't enforce mask rules? You shouldn't be. I mean, if you really cared about it, why are you going to places where people aren't wearing masks? And that's, but don't shame people, because I did see, I mean, there has been a lot of shaming in the local rave community, because people are posting about like getting tickets and now, and for some of these places that are open, and people are shaming them, like, it's not safe to go out yet and stuff like that. And people are like, dude, live your own life. Worry about yourself. Like, that's the way I feel.
Well, I have a friend, she has PTSD from a abusive relationship where her husband would choke her with things like seatbelts, blankets, would hold his hand over her mouth and things like that. And so she gets panic attacks when she has something over her face. And she's afraid to go out. The mask gives her a panic attack, but she's afraid to go out because she doesn't want someone to attack her.
Yeah.
Like, she doesn't want someone throwing a camera in her face or telling, yelling at her for not wearing a mask. So she's being re-victimized. Yeah. And she's afraid to leave her house.
That's important. That is a great example that needs to be pushed more when it comes to people that should be exempt from wearing masks.
She told me about that story, and I was like, wow. And I was like, thinking, but I won't say this to anybody because that's her private story. And she says, no, I want you to. I want you to tell people about this. I need them to understand. Yeah. So she wants you guys to know that, like, that's, you see somebody without a mask, don't assume that they're just an asshole or that they don't care about anybody. Like, everybody has their own thing going on. And maybe medically they can't wear a mask, like, you don't know what their situation is. So
because if you have asthma, you probably can't wear a N95 mask, which that's what most people, I mean, that's really one of the only ones that works the most. But what you're talking about earlier with just having these conversations and explaining to people about masks. When I was in North Carolina, the people that I was staying at the cabin, like, I was staying at their parents' like nice, like, their cabin, and then they were living in the cottage. They've been living in their smaller cottage just down the street since quarantine started, because she's immunocompromised and stuff. But he actually he works in the medical field, and he writes like case studies and stuff like that. So he gets the results and stuff, and writes the results and case studies and everything like that. And so they wanted to talk politics and masks and stuff like that too. And they're a little bit more on the liberal side, but it was he taught. We were able to have like an hour. We had our conversation probably was 3 or 4 hours long the first night, and then my other friend shut it down because she's like, I heard this for 4 hours last night. No more politics. But it was right, and I normally won't
allow political discussion in her house, and I completely understand her for that. Oh, yeah. It gets ugly.
Yeah, so it does. But he brought it up to me, and we were talking, because I didn't bring it up. I'm the same. I'm not going to bring up politics to anybody. That's just because I don't want to know people's politics. I don't care that much if you're a good person, right? But that was the thing, is he was really good about giving stats and talking about, what's going on, the drugs that they're doing and everything like that. So it really, if he was the person talking about, and I had actually invited him on, I think, but if he was the person that was literally sitting here talking to you, and you weren't like so anti-mask that you didn't even want to hear it, you would understand. You would have a different opinion of it, because it makes it a lot more reasonable and understandable that it's, and he wasn't shaming you for not doing it, And
interestingly, I found people who are both anti-masker, I hate these terms, maskers and anti-maskers, when you talk to them about their, theories or understandings, a lot of them agree up to like 98%
Yeah.
of the way. And there's like, just this disagreement of whether the government should be able to mandate or not, or one of those things. It's like, wow, you guys are so close that it's like, not even to be important, a statistical anomaly.
Yeah, well, that's exactly the way it happens. That's the way it happens with all politics in general, right? It's like, I mean now masks are gonna be pointless because Trump supports them, but
I'm waiting for that shoe to drop. I'm waiting
waiting for it to see it.
If liberals tear their masks off in rage, like
oh no, but that's the way it is in all stuff, and it's because the media and politicians, they spin it in such a way that it's one way or the other. And like, even when it was protesting, they were pushing a narrative that not the riot protesting, but protesting like shutdown stuff. They were pushing the narrative that people were protesting to, oh, go get your haircut. No, it's protesting our rights, and so when people, they want to push this narrative that it's something petty, but it's not petty, and they're actually looking at a bigger picture. Yeah. And then the people that say, I just want to go get my haircut and that's why I'm here, they don't help, because that's the vast majority is not that person.
Michael Malice has been saying this lately, and I think it rings so true, is that the corporate press tells the truth dishonestly.
Yeah. So
they'll say a thing that is true. For example, a guy was walking around in a protest with a sign that said, I need a haircut.
Yes.
That is not the representative of the argument. That's meant that, first of all, that's a funny sign. It's meant to be funny. I need a haircut. Like, as though liberal protests don't have silly signs. Y'all have all sorts of silly signs, but you took this one thing because it was the most easy thing to argue with. You couldn't really argue against the Constitution. You couldn't argue against the tenet of peaceful assembly. Which if you did, you wouldn't be able to protest for but you couldn't argue against that. So you picked this guy with this asinine sign and said, oh, all these right wingers, they just want haircuts. Well,
yeah, and that was the other narrative about the Michigan protest too. That was completely false, because was that it was all these alt-right with their racists with their guns, and they were intimidating lawmakers. When in fact, like, you had, like, there's other video out there of, they were very peaceful. Actually, some of the conservative lawmakers were texting back and forth with the people that were in the hallway, so they were getting updates and everything like that. And nothing that they did was illegal. They were not, there was like one or two signs that were, or there's one or two instances, like people that were yelling and being obnoxious. And that's the narrative that they ran with because of one or two people. And that's what they always do.
And you have to be so careful. It's like a lot of people excuse themselves to behave poorly because their opponents are behaving poorly.
Yeah.
And they say, well, they're doing it, so I can act this way too.
That's the whataboutisms are, and I hate that, but yeah, the whataboutisms that people are using these days. I hate how people don't know what those words mean though. They say whataboutism, calling somebody a Karen.
Karen doesn't mean anything anymore. It just means a woman who's saying something I don't like, because they used it in the opposite.
Bootlicker is another one. Like, what? Like they call libertarians bootlickers, and we're like anti-bootlickers. Okay, we are the ones that don't want the state. You guys want bigger state. Boot is the state.
My favorite thing is them saying, why are the libertarians silent on this?
Oh yeah.
And have you not been listening to me for this entire time? No. No. I've been bitching about this for years. You don't get to and say, where are the libertarians? Why are they silent? We're not silent. You're selectively deaf.
Yeah. We've been talking about this stuff forever, and you guys don't listen. And now that you guys want something from us. You guys think that we should be out in the front lines. We should be taking the bullets for you. That's not going to happen. We're going to continue to push the way that we're pushing.
Orwell warned us about this, but no one reads.
Yeah.
And Asimov warned us about that. So, you know, anyone who reads knew this was coming.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I actually still have. I need to read. What is it? 1984. I need to read it.
Yeah, it's a good refresher.
I might get the audiobook for my trip to Michigan in a couple weeks because I have an 11-hour drive and I might just.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, get the audiobook on. Oh yeah, I'm good to go. I think I have some credits on Audible too, so it's great.
Yeah, I'm a Michigander too. I don't know if
you are.
Yeah,
I didn't know that. What's that?
I come from Marquette.
Oh.
UP.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. You're a Uper. We did talk about that last time, I think, too, on your channel. I always forget too because there's a few people that I'm like, oh wait, you're from Michigan too.
That's why I like you. You're home folks.
Yeah. I'm a troll though. I mean, I grew up near Flint. So.
Yeah. That means something different now because of the internet, but in our day,
yeah. You're the troll. Yeah, you live under the bridge. I mean, yeah.
That's awesome.
I always forget that too. So, everybody that comes in.
Audiobook that if other people are looking for an audiobook right now, Anatomy of the State by Murray Rothbard is on YouTube as an audiobook. It's about 9 hours long, and that book, or no, it's 90 minutes long. Sorry, not 9 hours. It's 90 minutes long, and that book will change your life. Please avail yourself of it, even if you're not a reader.
I will. Yeah.
Yeah, like that book changed things for me when I was still considering myself a leftist, still considering myself a socialist.
Yeah.
I got a hold of that book and it popped things open for me.
I will definitely go read that. Yeah, or listen to it. I'm not much of a reader. I'm a visual and audio person. I mean, I have a photographic memory. I can remember visuals and instances and like what people actually said and everything like that, but I can't read a book and remember it and retain anything from it.
Well, my eyes are starting to go, and even though I'm an avid reader, I can't read for long periods or my eyes will get weak, so audio has been a lifesaver. YouTube is a treasure trove for people. All the classics are on there as audiobooks. So also Larkin Rose's The Most Dangerous Superstition.
Okay.
That's still a phenomenal book as an audiobook on YouTube. And then there's Economics in One Lesson by Henry Hazlitt is on there as well.
Everybody,
get those books.
Go read it. Or go watch them, which that's perfect because I'll just turn YouTube on like when I'm around the house, and even like right here I have my TV. So I have a TV right in my office that I like to just I'll just turn YouTube on up there and let it play while I'm working on other stuff. Maybe the only thing I don't do is when I'm editing video because I can't hear it. But
we're so lucky to have this kind of access to this level of information. It's so depressing that no one reads because everything is available, and I'm just like, use it.
Yeah, and that's one of the problems with like the audiobooks and stuff like that is that if you don't have the hard copy, they can just delete it. They don't even have to burn books anymore. They can just delete them.
Ain't that the way? But you know, every time somebody tries to do that kind of thing, other people find their way around it. So that's the great thing about the internet is like, you can't stop the signal, Mel.
No, that is true. That is true. But we've been going for a little bit, so I think we'll end up wrapping up here. Anything you want to push, promote?
Oh, my horror movie group. I run the largest horror movie challenge on the internet. It's called 100 Nights of Horror. It's a Facebook group. I am looking to expand it onto its own website and Twitter account and other things like that. But for right now, it's just on Facebook. But it's an open book, or it's an open group, and we watch 100 horror movies from July 23rd until Halloween night. And it's 100 days, and I provide schedules. We do live chats. We have group discussions about the movies. So if anybody's like into horror and just wants some kind of relief from all the politics and culture war stuff and just wants to do something fun, come join the challenge. There's not a lot of rules. You can do it all different ways. Gather them all up on the weekend and binge or do double headers. We just like to have fun and watch mind-bending horror movies. And then in November, the day after November 1st, I'm going to be having a soup club where once a week we cook and discuss different soups.
Okay.
So yeah, kind of a flip. We'll be doing horror movies and then soups. So soup club and 100 Nights of Horror are my two projects right now.
Club. Okay.
Yeah, and also I have my YouTube channel, which is the Jessica Green Show. That's kind of potpourri. I upload an episode when I feel like it. And then I have my blog, which is the Libertarian Kitchen Witch. And then my Twitter account is also Libertarian Kitchen Witch, LIBTKIT Witch. And if you want to contact me, that's probably the best way to do it.
I'll put those stuff in the link.
Yeah, I'll give you all
links
the
below. Yeah, just send me them. I will talk to you later, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Another great conversation with Jessica. We will talk again and again. We are gonna do this live soon. Okay.
Anytime, any topic, just let me know, Sarah. I always have so much fun when I'm on your program.
I know. Me and you, we always have a good conversation. So let's do brunch one of these days, and then we'll talk about it. Just let me know when I get back from Michigan. We'll coordinate that.
Yeah, please do, because you actually live pretty close to me, so we should make that happen.
Absolutely, not far at all.